August 7th, 2019 morning session of the Portland City Council. Carla, please call the roll.
Hardesty, Udaly,
Here.
Fritz.
Here.
Fish,
Here.
Wheeler.
Here. We'll hear from legal counsel now.
Good morning. Welcome to the Portland City Council. The City Council represents all Portlanders and meets to do the city's business. The presiding officer preserves order and decorum during City Council meetings so everyone can feel welcome, comfortable, respected, and safe. To participate in council meetings, you may sign up in advance with the council clerk's office for communications to briefly speak about any subject. You may also sign up for public testimony on resolutions or the first readings of ordinances. Your testimony should address the matter being considered at the time. If it does not, you may be ruled out of order. When testifying, please state your name for the record. Your address is not necessary. Please disclose if you're a lobbyist. If you're representing an organization, please identify it. The presiding officer determines the length of the testimony. Individuals generally have 3 minutes to testify unless otherwise stated. When you have 30 seconds left, a yellow light goes on. When your time is done, a red light goes on. If you're in the audience and would like to show your support for something that is said, please feel free to do a thumbs up. If you want to express that you do not support something, please feel free to do a thumbs down. Please remain seated in council chambers unless entering or exiting. If you are filming the proceedings, please do not use bright lights or disrupt the meeting. Disruptive conduct, such as shouting or interrupting testimony or council deliberations, will not be allowed. If there are disruptions, a warning will be given that further disruption may result in the person being ejected for the remainder of the meeting. After being ejected, a person who fails to leave the meeting is subject to arrest for trespass. Thank you for helping your fellow Portlanders feel welcome, comfortable, respected, and safe.
Very good. Thank you. First up is communications. And Carla, it's my understanding that the 5 individuals signed up for today would like to come up together. Is that correct?
Believe so, did you? Okay.
Yeah,
They
I'm
did.
seeing some head nods. Yes. All right. Thank you. Just go ahead and call all 5, please.
Okay. Item 740, request of Tiffany Conklin to address council regarding the Legal Walls PDX project. 741, request of Tomas Valadares to address council regarding the Legal Walls PDX project. 742, request of Brittany Quayle to address council regarding the Legal Walls PDX project. 743, request of Joey Williams to address council regarding the Legal Walls PDX project. And 744, request of Quinn the artist to address council regarding the Legal Walls PDX project.
Excellent. Thanks. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having us today. We're excited to talk to you a little bit. My name is Tiffany Conklin. I'm the Executive Director of Portland Street Art Alliance. We are a 501c3 nonprofit organization based here in Portland. Our mission is to empower and support street artists to activate the spaces where we live, work, and play. We were founded back in 2012, primarily at first as a grassroots advocacy group. We really wanted to help artists try to find their voices and be able to speak up about some things that were happening at the time. Thus, we now often act as an intermediary between the artist community, property owners, the city of Portland, and sometimes police. Since our founding, PSAA has evolved quite a bit, and we now provide a lot of educational resources, networking platforms, and professional development opportunities to artists in the community. In the past 2 years, we've facilitated commission work resulting in nearly $200,000 going into the hands of hardworking artists in our city. We get emails almost on a weekly basis from emerging and young artists, parents of artists, and visiting artists, all looking for easily accessible spaces in the city to paint, practice, and display their artwork. They're often surprised to hear that Portland actually does not have anything called what is commonly referred to as a free wall or a legal wall. Further, here in Portland, as many of us know, you need a mural permit also in order to paint anything legally in Portland. Our permitting process, while admittedly much better than it used to be, thanks to the hard work of a lot of advocates and people working towards making it better, it is still a bit restrictive, and it's also intimidating for artists to go through that process. It takes about a month to complete that process. So when you think about it, when a visiting artist wants to paint, that's something that's really hard for them to do without a lot of prior planning and somebody here on the ground doing some work for them. So many cities around the world have designated spaces known as free or legal walls, basically places that are designated that you can just go paint with very few barriers. So we see this as a gap in our programming here in the city, an unmet need that the city is currently not providing. Providing these safe and open spaces for people to paint and removing just some of these barriers would really go a long way to help ensure that our public art landscape is more equitable and accessible to everyone in the city. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Tomas Alfredo Valladares. I'm one of the founding directors of Portland Street Art Alliance and now the board chair. And we're here today to share to City Council the need for these sanctioned spaces of free expression in our city. And we believe that a legal wall or free wall would address some of these concerns that are lacking in the community, specifically places to practice and places where artists can learn from each other. As a result of more aggressive graffiti abatement tactics used in the past, we believe that there's been a lack of a vacuum of leadership in the street art community. An important part of the street art culture is this informal cross-generational mentorship that happens in these spaces, where emerging artists can learn from more senior artists the sort of unwritten rules or traditional values of the culture. There is also a lot of fear, mistrust, and unease in the artist community about interacting with the city, its permitting structures, and graffiti enforcement. And so for artists who are used to working outside of that system, having a safe space that they can paint without risk of persecution or prosecution is something that we think is lacking in the community and something that especially young emerging artists could really benefit from. And so after years of digging, PSAA realized that there was no empirical research or primary data on the subject of legal walls, free walls, and their impacts on communities. And so after speaking to city staff, we realized it would be up to us to do this research and help educate the public and the city about these types of spaces. Other municipalities, such as Spokane and Kennewick, Washington, have already actually reached out to us, really interested in this research. And we think that it will be really beneficial for street art and mural art making across the country. So as a small organization, we couldn't do it ourselves. And so last year we applied for PSU's Masters of Urban and Regional Planning workshop. And our proposal was accepted, and we are lucky enough to be teamed up with an amazing group of 6 graduate students, some of whom are here today to tell you about the research that they conducted.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Council, my name is Brittany Qualley, and I'm a recent graduate of Portland State University's Masters of Urban and Regional Planning program. And in collaboration with the Portland Street Art Alliance, a team of students, myself included, produced Legal Walls PDX, a proposal to make the graffiti and street art community more inclusive and connected by planning for a legal graffiti wall in the Central East Side Industrial District. A free wall or legal graffiti wall is a public space where people are free to legally paint, allowing them to practice and connect with other artists. To develop the proposal, we began our process with research, conducted engagement, and finally analyzed and synthesized our findings to produce recommendations. So we researched respected graffiti literature and spoke with graffiti and street art experts. We produced case studies of free walls from across the country and the globe and considered the local context. We utilized the City of Portland Bureau of Planning and Sustainability's Community Engagement Manual to guide the engagement process. And as a planning team, we framed our approach through an equity lens from the start of the process. We engage with many stakeholders that represent unique perspectives informed through different lived experiences. We interviewed 11 artists, gathered feedback through more than 40 online surveys. We conducted 20 interviews with public sector representatives. We spoke with businesses, property owners, and managers. We interviewed a dozen people experiencing houselessness in the Central East Side Industrial District, and we had conversations with potential program partners, including PAIR and Morpheus Youth Project. So sitting here now, I can affirm that this project has immense value for artists, businesses, and the community. A legal wall could provide a safe legal space for expression by artists, especially those of historically marginalized identities. An accessible platform for mentorship of new and emerging artists who may become interested in creating public artwork like murals, with nearby businesses, and a safe place for the artist community to connect, grow, and develop new skills. A legal wall could provide an opportunity to grow the Central East Side Industrial District's distinctive street art-infused character, an opportunity to develop positive relationships between the street art and business communities, and an amenity that will attract visitors and new businesses to the area. Personally, I was incredibly moved to hear the story of a young artist who discontinued their practice on the streets because of their undocumented status in this country. A legal graffiti wall in Portland could provide a safe space for this artist and others who face safety concerns that are integrally tied to their identity. The Legal Walls PDX plan outlines in detail 4 categories of recommendations, including legal pathways, design, stewardship, and programming and partnerships, which my fellow graduate, Joey Williams, will describe in further detail. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning.
Morning, Council. My name is Joey Williams, and I'm the other Masters of Urban and Regional Planning graduate on the project. Thanks for having us here today. I'll be discussing the findings of our project in more detail. From our research, we came to understand why Portland might benefit from having a free wall, how it should operate in order for it to be successful, and what a free wall could mean for communities and emerging and young artists specifically here in Portland. The reasons for a free wall include, as my colleagues mentioned, an opportunity to advance equity and safety for artists, a space safe for expression, a platform for developing and growing community, a space for mentorship to improve quality and skills and pass on the codes of conduct, norms, and ethics in the street art and graffiti community. One of the first and most frequently heard concerns from property owners in the Central East Side is the concern for hate speech persisting in a space. And the prevailing ethical code in the graffiti and street art community here is that hate speech should be first covered up when an artist puts up a new piece. But this practice needs a space in order to be passed down to new and emerging artists. And lastly, benefits include developed economic potential. And the development of artists can lead to employment opportunities to produce more murals and other curated projects that will beautify our city and be intentionally more representative and help contribute to the character of the surrounding community. We even heard that new businesses have chosen to locate in specific areas in the Central East Side for the expressive neighborhood character provided by street art. From interviewing artists, property owners, and managers, and operators and users of free walls around the world, we've determined a set of design and management practices describing how a free wall should look and feel, how to set norms at a free wall, manage waste, as well as how to create a positive, inclusive atmosphere. Our research also provoked opportunities to expand existing programs for young artists and youth experiencing houselessness interested in art in Portland. The only thing that is stopping all of this from happening is the legality of a continuously changing free wall for inclusive public expression in Portland. One of the distinct ways to make this happen, as we discovered through interviews with many city staff who are involved with the mural code in some way, from BDS to the Office of Civic and Community Life and as city attorney, is to address the current mural code, which stipulates the period of mural lifetime and upkeep. Addressing this in some way, maybe compared with other solutions to at least allow a pilot for this project. So another avenue that we explored is to expand the Regional Arts and Culture Council, RAC, to implement a legal wall through the Public Arts Mural Program. However this may happen, we recognize that an implementer, property owner, or manager, and several other parties will have to form an agreement of how the free wall is established and maintained. Our report provides recommendations on these steps, and we suggest doing so with the input and buy-in of the surrounding community, artists, and law enforcement throughout that process. We encourage you and invite you to read our short form plan, which has been provided, as well as our short summary from our longer form plan. I'd like to hand it over to one of the artists we spoke early on with, Quinn the artist, for you to hear his insightful perspective on a free wall in Portland.
Thank you. Is this a report you're referring to?
That's the summary, and there's a longer
Summary.
form available online.
Oh,
yes,
great.
as
Thank you. I
well as the
appreciate
short
it.
form Z.
Thank you very much.
Morning, Council.
Morning.
My name's Quinn. Thanks for having us here. And I'm an emerging muralist and painter here in Portland. And about 2 years ago, I realized I could paint and paint really big. Started painting walls on my house, the outside, the inside, and I realized I just had a passion for it. And that led me to contact PSAA, Portland Street Art Alliance here, and I contacted them about a mural wall. And since then, they actually gave me my first legal mural inside their designated garage, and it's really allowed me to grow. That was the first time where I had to be able to take my time to paint, really enjoy the process of it. And in the end, it kind of sparked just my passion for painting. And since then, I've been involved in some other mural projects, but more so invitational ones and commissioned ones. And since they've started this project with the legal wall, it's really made me realize that having a legal wall allows your work to first off be 100% you. There's no restrictions. It's a spot to really take your time, and it feels validating. It's a validating experience just painting, and it's also more importantly a safe spot to paint. I see it as being a spot where you can take your time, as well as connect with others. It feels very special being on a few mural projects to connect with people as I mentioned, I'm an emerging artist, connect with people that have just been painting much longer than me and bringing my friends along. It's a very communal and community event. I'm very excited to bring my peers along and people who have never picked up a spray can before as well, and just feel that passion. And more importantly, as developing new skills, it's just a spot to have fun, really express yourself in however way you want, and legally too. I remember when I first started painting, I wanted to go outside my house. I saw some walls around, but I refrained, and I'm thankful for PSAA here as well. And as I mentioned in this booklet, you guys have, as kids have playgrounds to play, and skateboarders have skate parks to skate, I see artists needing a wall to paint. And thank you guys for listening.
Thanks for being here. Commissioner Daly and then Commissioner Fritz.
Well, I want to thank all of you for coming. I'm really excited about this and grateful for the work that you've done. As I think some of you know, I have kind of an ambivalent relationship. One of the ironies of my job is that I'm the commissioner in charge of graffiti removal, given that I'm a longtime fan and supporter of street art. Not illegal tagging, I'll just say that right now. I don't save the emails. I'm not encouraging that, but this is just a beautiful idea, and I'm looking forward to working with you guys on it.
Thank you.
Commissioner Fritz.
So I used to be in charge of the graffiti abatement program, and the longtime coordinator of that said that the difference between art and vandalism is permission. And so I'm wondering, as I appreciate that you're coming in asking for permission to paint a wall, did the research show whether having legal walls increases or decreases graffiti in the rest of the city?
I would say it's inconclusive. There is not, we heard anecdotal evidence for or against that statement, but it's inconclusive.
And nobody's done any research on that?
We decided it was inconclusive because of the way data is collected on these incidences. We can't catch everything, so directing areas to monitor kind of biases the research. We also didn't want to pose it as an abatement solution. This is more about creating the platform for expression for everyone.
So you were mentioning about the code of ethics, and I know that one of them is that you're not supposed to paint over something that's more beautiful than you can do, or something like that.
Yes.
Could there also be an element of education and training for artists that painting somebody else's wall, as you said, you refrained? You know, art is in the eye of the beholder, so I would be quite upset if somebody chose to paint something of their choosing on my house, because I might or might not like it. So could there be an element of that if this was set up?
Yes, I think part of the idea here is having a space where everyone can congregate and go would provide those opportunities for connections to be made. So a lot of the requests as well coming specifically from parents that we get for providing mentorship opportunities for their youth who are interested in this. Basically, we help try making those connections with more established artists all the time. But they have to then first know to come to us in order to make those connections happen. Traditionally, throughout the world, when you just Google, free wall, legal wall is usually what those kids are Googling, trying to find spaces to go connect with the community. So I think if Portland had a designated space like that, it would provide that platform basically where youth who are just getting into this idea going to that space and other people would be congregated there and they would have that opportunity for at least finding that out. And part of the recommendations is also posting signage on whatever space this was with some of those rules about, like you said, only tagging over something that's more beautiful, there is kind of a hierarchy that's encouraged. And then also, it would provide information about Portland Street Art Alliance and ways of getting involved with the larger art community. So we kind of see this as a focal point and a platform for those who really don't know how to get involved and find organizations like us.
I think that the Tacoma, there was a free wall space in Tacoma that they had posted signage stating the rules, and it's not necessarily about what's more beautiful, but maybe more intricate, and sort of there's like a skill level that's involved. And then Burnside Skate Park is another example of a signage that sort of states the rules of the space and what is expected of people in that space. So I think those are great examples of what could also be done in a space like this. And we also hope that creating a pilot wall would be a great place to start in doing some of the research and seeing at least if that does decrease some tagging in the area or provides a way to mitigate some of the unwanted tagging.
Thank you.
Great. Just to be clear, so I understand, first of all, thanks for the presentation. I appreciate it, and I look forward to reading the research that you've done through PSU. We're not talking about illegal tagging. We're not talking about going onto people's private property and against their will vandalizing the property, and we're not talking about doing that on public spaces either, because I want to be clear, I oppose that. It sounds like what you're suggesting is you want to create a partnership either with a public entity or a private sector enterprise who has a wall and then reach some sort of a community agreement and then do a pilot. Am I hearing you correctly?
Yes.
Okay, and is there something in our codes that prevents that from happening? Okay,
Yes.
so what you're asking for is a proposal that will then come back to us for consideration as a pilot when you have a private sector partner who's good to go and you feel like you have a viable location. Fantastic.
Yes.
That seems like a very reasonable approach, and I appreciate it.
Yeah.
You bet. Thanks for coming in today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Carla, have any items been pulled from the consent agenda today?
Had no requests.
Very good. Call the roll.
Udaly,
Aye.
Fritz,
I'm voting aye. I also need to note I continue to be disappointed at getting 6 months of council minutes for, I think it's 2018, and in August of 2019. Unfortunately, I have not been able to go through 6 months of council minutes for meetings that happened last year, but I still vote aye.
Fish,
Aye.
Wheeler,
Aye. The consent agenda is adopted. First item is it's not 10 o'clock, so we're going to skip the first time certain item. Let's see here, what can we do? We have a bunch of second readings. Let's go to procurement. Let's go to 765, please.
approve findings to authorize an exemption to the competitive bidding requirements and authorize the use of the alternative contracting method of construction manager, general contractor in connection with the downtown, Old Town, Southwest Taylor Sewer Rehabilitation Project for an estimated amount of $7.1 million.
Colleagues, this is a second reading. We had a good presentation on this and took public testimony. Is there any further discussion? Please call the roll.
Udaly,
Aye.
Fritz.
Aye.
Fish,
Aye.
Wheeler.
Aye. The ordinance is adopted. Next item, 766.
Establish an annual residential rental unit registration fee to fund the Housing Bureau's Rental Services Office from the Housing Investment Fund.
Any further discussion on this item? If not, please call the roll.
Udaly,
Well, with passing this item, Portland is going to join with many other major cities in the country that require a simple registration of rental units. This $60 fee will not fully fund the office, I believe, but should cover the costs of registration and support information referral for landlords and tenants. I vote aye.
Fritz.
I would have supported this if it had come to us last year before we did all the other changes. I agree that we need a rental registration program and that it needs to be funded. However, on top of all of the other additional regulations that we've put on landlords and the fact that this fee is not going to help pay for universal inspections, which most other rental registration fees do. Also, it's regressive and doesn't exempt the really low-cost housing, such as manufactured home parks. So regretfully, I vote no.
Fish.
I want to thank the mayor and Commissioner Daly for their leadership on this. I vote aye.
Wheeler.
Thank you. I'm pleased to support this rental registration fee. This has been both a commitment and a priority of mine since I took office. This fee will ensure that we have the ongoing resources that are necessary to fund the Office of Renter Services and to establish a system to collect more accurate data of the rental market in Portland. And I just want to add that quality data is something that both landlords and developers and tenant rights organizations have requested. This is the way we help fund the program to do that. I want to thank the Portland Housing Bureau staff, especially Director Shannon Callahan and Matt Chabold, the Revenue Division Director Thomas Lanham, who has probably put in more time and more hours on this than just about anything else in the last several months, and I want to thank Thomas for that. And of course, I want to thank the members of my staff who've worked tirelessly on this, especially Cupid Alexander, my chief, Kristen Dennis, and Tia Williams. I vote aye. The ordinance is adopted. Next item, 768, also a second reading.
Amend vehicles and traffic and public improvements codes to add necessary clarification and update language to align with current city practices.
Colleagues, this is also a second reading. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Udaley?
Aye.
Fritz?
Aye.
Fish?
Aye.
Wheeler?
Aye. The ordinance is adopted. 769, second reading. Please call the roll. Read it, sorry, first, then call the roll.
769, vacate Southeast 64th Avenue, south of Southeast Sherman Street, subject to certain conditions and reservations.
Any further discussion? Please call the roll.
Udaley?
Aye.
Fritz?
Aye.
Fish?
Aye.
Wheeler?
Aye. Ordinance is adopted. 770, second reading.
Vacate a portion of Southwest 9th Avenue between Southwest Gibbs Street and Southwest U.S. Veterans Hospital Road, subject to certain conditions and reservations.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll, Carla.
Udaley?
Well, since I lost track of where we were and forgot to do my thank yous on 768, I just want to say thank you to PBOT staff Matt Burkow, Ann Hill, and Jean Yamamoto for their work on 768. And as for 770, I vote aye.
Fritz?
We're whipping through this agenda, and we've got
Yeah,
to...
we really are.
We've got to make long speeches so we can get to 10 o'clock.
I know.
I should read the entire ordinance. No, I'm happy to vote aye.
Fish?
Aye.
Wheeler?
Aye. Ordinance is adopted. Let's see, where was I?
775.
775, second reading.
Amend contract with Moore Excavation, Inc. for additional compensation to complete existing contract work due to increased bid item quantities and changed conditions for the Slabtown Sewer Replacement Project, number E10663, not to exceed $4,157,000.
This also is a second reading. Any further discussion on this item? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Udaley?
Aye.
Fritz?
Well, even if I wasn't trying to spin this out for a minute so we get to 10 o'clock, I would still say this is one of the most interesting presentations that we have ever seen, at least that I have ever seen, in 10 and a half years, and we all now know why it's called Slabtown. Aye.
Fish?
I want to echo those comments. I want to thank Liz Moorhead and Nick Naval, who did an excellent job walking us through this presentation last week. Very proud of the work my team is doing. And we have set a very ambitious goal over the next 10 years of upgrading significantly the quality of our infrastructure. But occasionally we run into unforeseen circumstances like this that require us to come back and seek additional resources. But the team is doing great work, and I'm pleased to support this item. Aye.
Wheeler?
Well, I agree with Commissioner Fritz. Who would have known that talking about the sewer system in our city could actually be a really interesting narrative, and a number of mysteries were solved along the way, which I found interesting, as well as gaining a new historical perspective. Great presentation, good discussion. I vote aye. The ordinance is adopted, and guess what? It's 10 o'clock on the nose. We'll go to time certain, number 745.
Amend original art murals code to expand the location where murals are allowed.
Colleagues, we just heard some very good public testimony on one aspect of public art. And this ordinance here, we have Mika Keenan with the Director of Development Services and Phil Namany with the Bureau of Planning and Sustainability. They're here to jointly present recommendations to amend Title IV of the original Art Murals Code. The history of mural regulations within the city stretches back more than 20 years, and it's tied to the city's sign regulations and the Oregon Constitution and limitations of a government's ability to regulate the content of speech. I'm guessing that's Article 1, Section 8. In short, the courts have determined that the city cannot regulate murals or artwork distinct from signs if the distinction requires viewing the content of a piece to make a regulatory determination. In response to the legal limitations, the city developed two procedures for reviewing murals. The first project, Public Art Murals, expanded the city's existing public art program to include murals. As a patron and funder of the arts, the city, through the Regional Arts and Culture Council, also known as RAC, evaluates murals for inclusion in the city's public arts program. Second, the city adopted the Mural Code for smaller scale murals that intend to be a community asset. The Mural Code provides a legal permitting avenue separate from signs and the RAC process. This code, along with the associated administrative rule, allows an applicant to get a permit by meeting minimum criteria for reviewing and approving murals based upon application and not based upon content. These criteria include, but are not limited to, the height, location, and minimum duration a mural must remain in place. These regulations have been largely successful. BDS issued approximately 15 to 20 mural permits a year since it was adopted back in 2009. The permit requirements are simple and low cost, $50 per permit. Staff have found the code relatively easy to apply. The amendments being proposed today are intended to build on the success of the code by loosening some of the existing restrictions and allowing more places that murals can be installed. I'd also like to thank the Portland Street Art Alliance and the Regional Arts and Culture Council for working with staff on this important project. And with that, I'll call up Mika Keenan and Phil Namany. Thanks for being here this morning. Morning.
Good morning. Thank you all for hearing our presentation this morning. My name is Mika Keenan. I'm with the Bureau of Development Services. I'm here today with Phil Namany from the Bureau of Planning and Sustainability, and Peggy Kendellen from the Regional Arts and Culture Council is also here for invited testimony.
Very good.
We are here today to talk about Title IV original art murals. And for our agenda, this is a relatively short presentation today. Phil will be reviewing the code history and background, as well as the purpose of the code. And then I will run through an implementation update, code amendment recommendations, as well as administrative rule changes. And then we'll be available to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you.
So with that, I'll turn it over to Phil.
Good morning, Mayor Wheeler and commissioners. Phil Namany with Bureau of Planning and Sustainability. And I actually have worked on all the different code iterations of the mural projects. It's been gone through history. Also, if you want to know a little bit more about all the legal issues that have come about this, Tracy Reeve has been there since the very start, and I'm sure over a cup of coffee she'd be happy to explain all the details of that. I do want to mention that at one point the city did distinguish murals from other painted wall signs. We actually had painted wall decorations and painted wall signs. This was challenged in court by AKA Media, who is now owned by Clear Channel, and they were successful. And their actual intended outcome was to throw our sign code and any code that related to signs out. And instead, what we basically did was do the inverse and take any reference to murals out or painted wall decorations. And so in 1998, that was when we removed that language. And so for a period of time, any kind of mural was treated just like a sign. The reason why this happened is, as Mayor Wheeler mentioned, the Oregon Constitution actually has more, I don't know if you'd say more liberal or more restrictive, but basically how you can regulate free speech is more restrictive under the state constitution than it is under the federal, whereas elsewhere you can potentially distinguish between commercial and non-commercial speech. In the state of Oregon, you cannot make that distinction. So you cannot declare something to be a non-commercial speech item and something else be a commercial and regulate them differently. So as a result, murals, which were tended to be a non-commercial expression, were placed under the sign code. Our former mayor, Mayor Katz, wanted to find a way to try to encourage at least some avenue to provide murals, and she worked with the Regional Arts and Culture Commission to develop what was known as the Public Art Mural Program. And what this did is it basically incorporated public art murals into the city's art program. And so just like other works of public art, the RAC could review and approve and essentially take ownership of a mural as a part of the city's public art program. And that passed in 2005. It was a partial solution. It still did not get at some of those kind of community-driven murals or situations where a school might want to go through with a mural artist and they don't necessarily need funding from RAC. They don't really want to be part of the city's public art program, but they wanted to have a ability to put up a mural. While this was all going on, there were still legal remands and things going on. And what was found, I think, in 2008 was it was found that there was a determination that the city could potentially regulate a mural without looking at content, if they could look at other things such as how it's applied, other kind of maybe time, place, manner type things. And out of that came what was known as the original art mural program, which we approved in 2009. Because of the history of litigation with sign companies and so on, we took kind of a cautious approach to that. And when adopting the code, we limited it to being placed on the exterior walls of buildings. We limited the height of it because we wanted it to be a community asset that was at a pedestrian level and not high up. Also, we did provide a requirement that the mural stay in place for 5 years. The idea, once again, being that it be something that the community could rally around and it would be something that they could identify with. And so those were some of the main things we put on there. I do want to mention we did create a title for a new title for the original art murals. We kept that title simple and we put a lot of the procedures into the administrative rule, which is administered by BDS, and that gives them the opportunity to make changes as they see fit in terms of, you know, how the application process works, how the neighborhood involvement is done, and things like that. One of the things we did do, I know that it's mentioned at the beginning of a series of comments at the beginning of the commission session, the original art mural process does take a little bit of time because there is a requirement in the admin rules to meet with the neighbors around there and kind of present the proposal. That's not a binding meeting, but it's just a sense to try to create dialogue between them. So all that it takes place in the administrative rules, and I think Mika is going to go ahead and talk a little bit about the administrative rules as well, although the council is just voting on the Title IV. And I think with that, I'm going to set it back to Mika.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to give a brief implementation update. So in the past 3 years, we have issued 49 permits, which is consistent of the average of 15 to 20 since the code was adopted in 2009. There's objective standards in the code, which people have found easy to apply, and the standards are relatively easy to meet. The code is easy to administer, and there is a low barrier to entry. So we have a low permit fee. We do ask for a public notification, and this is really intended to pull the community into the conversation and get them engaged with the artist and an original work of art. So they have to post the site where the mural is going to be located 30 days in advance of this meeting, as well as let the neighborhood association know. And it's really an invitation for an open meeting and dialogue. So that posting needs to be up no shorter than 21 days. So that is where that time lag comes in, is just for this public notice requirement. So when we started looking at scoping this project, this really is the first policy change that we're looking at to the code since 2009. And what the ongoing conversation with the artists in the community was, you know, there's really some overly restrictive areas of this code. And because it has been largely successful, we've had a lot of murals installed. Let's see if we can expand some opportunities and create some more locations for muralists to install their work. And while we were at it, we said, okay, there's also some confusing restrictions or confusing overlaps in there and some language that we could update as well. And reducing the 5-year minimum duration is something that's in the administrative rule, which falls under the umbrella of expanding opportunities for muralists. So stakeholder involvement, once we came up with this original scope of the project, we assembled a technical advisory committee, which included the Bureau of Planning and Sustainability, the Bureau of Environmental Services, the Portland Bureau of Transportation, as well as the Graffiti Abatement Program with the Office of Community and Civic Life, as well as RAC and the Portland Street Art Alliance and Multnomah County to look at some ideas for how we could expand opportunities in the city. So for the code changes, the simpler changes were really some clarifications and update, and we wanted to clarify where the code applies. So as the code is currently written, you're not allowed to have a mural in the right-of-way. And we added a section that says if a mural begins on private property and encroaches into the right-of-way, then that's allowed. So if it's on a fence or a building that might encroach into the right-of-way, then that would be okay. We also updated the definition of grade. So grade is where a building meets the ground, and that is actually where we measure the height of the mural from. And that definition matches the Oregon Structural Specialty Code definition, which has changed since 2009, so we wanted to update that as well. And then the primary policy change for Title IV is really to, again, expand the locations where murals can be installed. And we did this by changing the definition. So by definition, a mural must be affixed to the side of a building. So this is the actual definition that you see on this in the code, and that underlined piece is we're adding these two words, or structure. So this really is going to allow murals to be located on more structures. And a structure is anything that's built in or on the ground. It includes retaining walls, flagpoles, buildings, decks, things of that nature. It doesn't include landscaping, and it doesn't include paved areas. So this is really creating more opportunities on private property. And then we have a handful of administrative rule changes, as Phil had mentioned. So the code amendments really go hand in hand with these administrative rules. Removing the height requirement in the design overlay zone. Title IV currently has a height restriction of 30 feet, which again is to keep murals as a community asset. We really want to make sure that they're accessible to a community. And this also limits the attractiveness of potential advertisers as an avenue to get a permit if they often want to see a lot of visibility and things up high. So this keeps it the mural as a community asset. Reducing the minimum duration from 5 to 2 years. So right now, a mural must be maintained for 5 years, and we're proposing to reduce that to 2 years, which might make it more acceptable or attractive to a building owner who is a little resistant to having a mural for 5 years, and maintaining it 2 years might be something that would, make it more feasible for them.
Can I ask you a question on that? So we heard some testimony earlier today about free walls and the like, and obviously the 2-year minimum would not work with that kind of strategy, or would it?
That would not work with this strategy.
First of all, could you give us some idea of why the minimum exists? And number two, it sounded like they wanted to come back to council or work with RAC and work with others and potentially put together some sort of an idea or a pilot project that the council could then consider at a later date. What is the core reason for having the minimum duration? And does this in any way tie back to court rulings? I'm just trying to figure out what because I understand the administrative aspect of it, but why is there a minimum at all?
So there's a minimum duration, which does tie back to having these standards in place and the sign code, right? So this is something that we can regulate without looking at the content. And if you have no time requirement, I would say there's two things. It reduces the community feel to it and creating this like sense of place if something can be changing on a daily basis. It's not something that, everybody in the community is participating in. It's more of a revolving project. It also would open the door to allowing revolving advertisements. So because we can't regulate content, an advertiser could come in and potentially have rotating advertisement on a wall.
Could the council make specific carve-out exception? For example, if we did a free wall, and we're really early in on this conversation.
Yep.
I'm just hypothesizing. If we did it, could the council make a carve-out for a limited exception or in a very specific location? Do we have the ability to shape this further?
We do have the ability to shape it further. My suggestion would not be to change the code for a single project, but I think that there are other opportunities to support this project and make it happen. I think we're looking at some other avenues through RAC. I don't know, Phil, if you have anything you want to add to the history on the
Well, I think one of the
location.
things, when you talk about a specific location, that lends itself to something that is a partnership with RAC, is how I'd see it, because then RAC could possibly help with the management. They could maybe, organize if it's especially going to be a free wall that provides like an incubator space or things like that. It could even be tied into, future art kind of thing. The thing that we're always cautious about just removing that entirely is the idea that even though our code does say that a building owner can't get compensation for displaying the mural, there are potentially other workarounds where a sign company could say, if they've got a wall that's a graffiti problem, they could say, we'll take care of the wall, we'll maintain it if you just let us revolve the sign. So that's the one thing. There's a lot of, unfortunately, there's a lot of similarities between the desires of a sign company or an advertiser and a desire of, other forms of expression. Visibility is important. Having the ability to, make changes is important, and those kind of apply equally to both of these situations.
Good.
And so that's tough.
I agree with that, and that was my concern, and I'm glad that we have RAC and others working on this question, because there is a balancing act here. We definitely don't want to open the door for revolving signs all over the place, and I remember that debate and this discussion many years ago, I think, at this point.
Mayor.
Commissioner Daly.
I just want to say I appreciate your thoughtfulness on this particular item. We are inundated with advertising at every turn. We do not need to provide corporations with more opportunities to bombard the public with advertising. This is about art, so thank you for that.
So just to wrap up these last pieces, 4, 5, and 6, we're updating procedures to be consistent with our current practices. So these are just some permit procedure changes that we've made. We're adding a definition of structure since we're expanding the location from buildings to structure. We thought it'd be helpful to have a definition in there as well. And that's the same definition that's in the zoning code so that we have some consistency there. And then we're looking to make some general updates to make sure that the administrative rule and Title IV changes are consistent. So in summary, we're looking to expand locations where murals can be installed through code amendments and administrative rules. And I did pull some of the murals from our permitting database just to show a couple of examples of some of the work that's been permitted through this program. And this is a tile mosaic on the side of a school building on Iowa Street. This is a painted wall mural on Southeast Belmont Street. You can see this includes some text and of more of a personal nature. And this is also a mural that functions more as advertising. And then this is also a tile mosaic on the side of a building on Northeast Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard. And then this is a RAC-approved mural on Alamar Restaurant, and this was done with some students from David Douglas High School. So the options today for council are to adopt the code amendments as recommended and direct BDS to update the administrative rule, adopt the code amendments with modifications and direct BDS to update the administrative rule, or to deny the recommendations and maintain the existing code. And at this time, I'd like to invite Peggy Kendellen with the Regional Arts and Culture Council to come up for some invited testimony.
Thank you both. Good presentation. Good morning.
Good morning. So good morning, Mayor and Commissioners. I'm Peggy Kendellen, Senior Public Art Manager at the Regional Arts and Culture Council and manager of the city's Public Art Murals Program, which was officially launched in 2005 under the leadership of Mayor Vera Katz. So needless to say, RAC is excited that the Mayor's office has brought forward the proposed changes to Title IV, and thank you for all of your continuing support.
Thank you.
I was part of the murals working group that designed the city's original art mural permitting program in 2009, which we're talking about today. And then discussions resurfaced in September of 2017 in Commissioner Udaley's office with her and PSAA and other city staff at the table. So it's been a long discussion. We're here in August 2019. So RAC supports the changes to Title IV presented today. These ideas for change have been simmering over the past several years as we witnessed an increase in artists, neighborhoods, businesses, and property owners wanting more murals. Community benefits are real when it comes to public murals. They benefit artists, neighborhoods, business, and property owners, and tourism. The guidelines for the city's permit were beginning to make it more challenging in terms of longevity and location. These are simple changes that align with the original intent of the code and should encourage more artists and communities to bring art to our urban landscape. So we've all seen the positive impacts of murals in our city and how they've supported the creative economy and by putting dollars in the pockets of artists. Portland Street Art Alliance, Forest for the Trees, TriMet, and RAC all have commissioned or sponsored hundreds of artists. Murals become wayfinders. They identify neighborhoods and businesses, and they bring tourism dollars into the local economy, and they often mitigate vandalism. I also want to mention Portland's Innovation Quadrant Group, the Portland IQ, an emerging collaborative ecosystem that one of their interests is to feature murals as one of the ways to make the Central Eastside Industrial District a tourist destination. And wouldn't it be great to see a vivid, rotating outdoor gallery of murals that promoted both local and visiting artists? To address the presentation made earlier by PSU and PSAA, I commend them for doing that important work that has been needed to bring the legal discussion to the next level here at City Council. It's impressive and passionate work and adds value to our current work with murals, which are always evolving. RAC would love to work with them to figure out how we might bring the idea of a free legal wall into the temporary public art program that we're already doing. An example of that is our Fresh Paint initiative, which started out as a pilot project in partnership with Open Signal at MLK and Graham. That pays a stipend to artists of color to paint a temporary exterior mural, which goes back to the benefit of supporting artists to expand their skills. So each mural remains in place for 6 months, and along with giving the artists an opportunity to learn new techniques, the project also increases public awareness about their work. And in fact, the first 3 artists in that program have gone on to do some permanent important commissions in the city. A legal free wall could be viewed as complementary to this already existing program. And it would create a safe space for the artists to paint and learn, as was mentioned earlier. So if artists have anything to say about it, neither murals nor artists' voices are going away anytime soon. And please continue to count on RAC support for you in this work.
Mayor, I have a
Thank you.
couple questions.
Commissioner Fish.
Peggy, thank you for your testimony. So is your recommendation that we adopt the code changes as proposed, but come back and do a pilot with PSAA?
I think that's a good idea. I think we could work on establishing a pilot for the temporary legal wall.
And do you have the capacity to do that at RAC?
We would have to look at our current capacity and how we would roll that into our current programming with time and money. Yeah.
What's the current budget for the public art mural program?
50,000, that has been the budget from the beginning in 2005, and it's stayed that way.
So you may end up having a request for some additional dollars to do a pilot?
We can look at that at RAC.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Great. Thank you for the presentation. Outstanding. Carla, how many people do we have signed up for public testimony today?
8 people.
Very good. Call the first 3, please. 3 minutes each, name for the record. Microphones slide around, and they work best if you keep about 6 inches of distance between your mouth and the microphone.
First 3 are Diana Lightning and Shedrick J. Wilkins.
Yeah, and I'm being reminded, again, please stay focused on the subject at hand today. We'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Good morning, Mayor and Commissioners. My name is Diana, and I'm very moved by this agenda item, item 745, in regards to the Portland art murals. Based off of the current public testimony that we received during communications, I think that it is very valid, and I see that it can definitely benefit the city of Portland. It can connect communities together. It can connect people who are looking for work, and also provide a safe haven and a safe way for people to express themselves, to use their voice, and to talk about things that maybe we don't always think about as a general public. I love the city of Portland, and my husband and I go on many outdoor walks. And one of the things that I love about the walks is the murals that are painted around my neighborhood and then just within the inner cities. I am a fan of art. I think that being able to express yourself creatively is very important. And to be able to see that nurtured in our city is vital. So my only question really is when they are talking about informing the community. I know for myself, I've seen a lot of new murals go up, but I've never been informed on those things. So I just want to know how they go about informing the public or the neighborhoods with building structures that are going to have beautiful murals painted on them. Because for myself, I would love to see that, unfold, and I'd like to be a part of that. The other thing is that I do think that one thing to be considered is the timeline for how long murals can stay up, because I do think that if we can have them evolving, it gives more opportunity to local artists here in the city of Portland. And based off of the public communication this morning, that's really what it's about. Local artists are wanting to have a free space, a free wall to paint and express themselves. And so having the contract come down from 5 to 2 years, I think is a really good start. And if we can even bring it down a little bit more than that, so more artists can have the opportunity to circulate creatively, I see that being a really beautiful thing. So I'm 100% in support of this, and I hope that you guys support it as well. Thank you.
Thanks for your testimony. Appreciate it.
Okay. I'm Shedrick J. Wilkins. Can this turn into some sort of, is there provisions against a mural being pornographic art? And have a pornographic art war in Portland? Is there any supervision about the content of the mural? When I was a little kid, there was a Standard Insurance building with a picture of 2 women, a statue with 2 women over here, and 2 men in a bathtub, and they're naked. I mean, I could take a picture of that and draw it on a mural. Strangely enough, that statue's always been there, but it's not been expanded either. It's not like every plaza has something like that. So it's kind of weird. Maybe objections would regulate that sort of thing, and people would allow it some places and then not others. But it is strange. I've seen that when I was a kid, looked at it, you know, and I think there should be some review and on that topic, because it is controversial. I've actually walked by the building and with little kids, and the parents are going this way and I'm going that way, so it's kind of funny.
Morning.
Good morning. My name is Lightning. To Walt Pellet on the east side, they need a wall. So to my friend Walt, they'll probably be talking to you. Also, I'm surprised PSU hasn't stepped up. I'd love to paint on the side of your buildings. PSU, you're a bunch of worthless idiots over at PSU, the upper-level administrators. Now, moving on, this Title IV is a bunch of garbage. Should be thrown in the garbage can. You want to restrict the creativity, the free flow of ideas, what the artist can do. You know what? Why don't you go restrict yourself? And you know, to call it content neutral is just to allow more ways of not the public coming after them if they don't go content based on this, to go after them through court cases, and just to allow the government not to stand there and say, you know what, if it doesn't meet our purposes and our needs as the government, we're not going to allow it to happen. Well, guess what? Who cares? Who cares what you want? This is art. Free flow of ideas, imagination, what they want to do. You start restricting these artists in the manner you're doing, you won't have artists in this city. This is pathetic. Pathetic. And by the way, if you want a wall, get together with some of these private entities, buy the buildings, and by the way, Uber and Lyft and all of you that are already beginning to buy these buildings, these artists want to paint on the side of your buildings. And I know you're going to allow them to do that. And here's the deal. Artists don't need to be restricted. This is pathetic. Pathetic in my idea, in my view, on what an artist is. An artist needs to be free. An artist needs to have the ability to create free flow of ideas, create great art, what they think is great, not what you think is great. The artist has that right and that ability until they sign these contracts and give it all away to RAC, to the city of Portland. I don't think so. Take your Title IV, take all of this and throw it in the garbage can. That's where it belongs, because the private sector will allow murals to go on their private buildings, which will be considered fixtures, which will be considered the property of the artist, and they will not allow you to restrict it, period. This is an outright joke to me. And by the way, Jordan Snitzer, they want a wall. Do we want to have a discussion and give them a wall? Yes, let's do that. I'll get together with you sometime next week and get all these artists a wall. Quit allowing yourself to be restricted, controlled, and take away everything you are, which is the artist. The artist to create ideas, do what you want, have a little edginess
Thank
to
you.
it.
Thank you. Your time is
Be
up.
an artist.
Thank you.
You
Your
people
next
want
three,
to
please.
control everything in this city.
Next
You don't
three
control
are
art, trust
Tomas Velardes, Maggie, and Charles Bridge Crane Johnson.
Ears hurt.
Casa would be upset.
No, sorry.
Good morning.
You're not.
Yeah, thank you again.
So we feel very lucky to be
We lost our quorum.
Oh, yeah, one sec. Why don't we take a 2-minute recess? Oh, she is? Okay, great. Never mind. Here she is. Good morning. Thanks.
Morning. Yep.
Lightning, I want to remind you that this is a disruption contrary to council rules. If you do not stop, you will be asked to leave.
Freedom of speech, freedom of expression.
You don't get to interrupt other people's free speech or freedom of expression.
That's art. F you.
No, it's just obnoxious. Good morning.
Hold your feet, my friend. Don't put your hand on. Don't put your hand on.
I just wanted to make some statements about the mural code changes. We feel very lucky as an organization, Portland Street Art Alliance, to be asked to be at the table as community representatives for the reexamination of the mural code. And it's been a long time coming, and we honor the history of all those that who worked to get here, specifically Portland Mural Defense and other arts advocates who got us to this point. And we support the proposed changes to the mural code. But we also feel that there is something that's not being addressed through the city code or through RAC currently, and that's outside of the free walls, is we're also looking for ways to have rotating art spaces. So though the proposed changes to move from 5 to 2 years is a step towards that, we actually do think that there should be a minimum duration because it does protect artists and it protects work that we want to keep in the public sphere for longer. And we also understand that that actually helps deter advertising as well. However, we are seeing that in chronically tagged or vandalized properties, one way that we have seen works really well is to invite well-respected artists that work in graffiti style writing, and they are able to paint freely with time, with some budget, but that also opens it up to being able to be a curated, rotating space. That if something were to get tagged, it's much easier, quicker, cheaper to have someone else come and paint something new over that space. And so we're proposing or asking for the council to direct BDS or Office of Civic Life to find a new way or new avenues outside of potentially of the mural code to allow for rotating spaces for artists. That could be something that could be temporary, 6 months, 3 months. And so we hope that we can find a way to do that while still preserving the protections for artists and preserving the code that deters advertising.
Very good. Could I ask you one follow-up question, then I'll get to Commissioner Fritz. Could you be a little more specific when you say rotating art spaces? Could you just talk a little bit, briefly about what you mean?
Sure. We see that there are opportunities for artists to paint murals for limited time. So we've worked with particularly buildings that are chronically tagged or vandalized, and oftentimes these are either vacant spaces or spaces that are going to be demolished. And so they're temporary spaces that are there for maybe only a year before they're redeveloped. And so in those spaces, we've proposed to bring in artists to paint and then invite artists to kind of continually rotate and change out those spaces. So it's spaces that sometimes are not there for 2 or 5 years.
Got it.
even.
Thank you. I
Yeah.
appreciate that clarification. Commissioner Fritz.
There is an exemption if the building's sold, so that you don't have to keep it for 2 years. We did look, I was on multiple committees about this for many years, and it has to be content neutral, so we can't say whether we like it or not. So I think you could probably do it that if it gets tagged over, you can repaint the original art, but not put different art up. But maybe that could be a training experience too. If you've got a really great artist who puts up their first one and then you get it gets tagged and novices come in and, like you try to copy great master works of art, try to restore it to its original glory.
Thank you. Thanks for your testimony.
Thank you.
Hello.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
For the record, Charles Bridge Crane Johnson. And, it's interesting that we have these discussions with no anecdotal cites to facts. I don't know if the Willamette Week has Alex here or if Hannah Chin also came. Some of you, I'm sure, are aware that there's been some concern about how the mural work is handled with the Montevilla Co-op, Montevilla Farmers Market. In the bigger context, there was a brief mention of mural tourism, and it is strange that we haven't been able to, in this long, there is Mural Alley in San Francisco. In Seattle, the tourism was, I think, an alley with gum on the wall. Hopefully we can do something a little bit better than that. But the person that testified just before me, I would encourage you to take to heart his suggestion about inter-bureau cooperation. I don't know exactly how you catalog structures or buildings that are part of chapter code 29.40. I don't know if that's accurate. I'm going by, last week I quoted the Daily Mail. This time I'm quoting one of the Examiner newspapers. The local Southeast Examiner says that it's code section 29.40. That particularly relates to a mural art site at 26 and Belmont in that story from last year. So I was surprised to hear the RAC mention that there were 40 official, or 49, I think they said, official collaboration murals. And I'm not a super patron or devotee of street art, but it would have been interesting to know what resources are out there besides just telling everybody, Google it for yourself about Portland street art, which is probably some great Googling. Is there any kind of process? It was, it is ironic that we have Portland State presenting here, and I can't think of any commissioned, regulated, ordinance-sanctioned mural work going on the Portland State campus, maybe because they're busy throwing $800,000 at their booted president. I don't know. So I think that when we want things, we need to start in our own backyards. So I hope that will invigorate people at Portland State to also bring us some great street art just 10 blocks south of here as we, I think, I'm not a street artist. I can't tell you whether it's in the best interest of the public, whether you vote yes or no. I don't know if I'll be sad or happy if you're unanimous or split on this, but let's up the level of conversation and bring these artists. This is one of the great things that Chloe Eudaly has done as commissioner is there's a more vibrant dialogue and variety of arts projects flowing through the lobby of this building. So let's get some pictures of this art into the lobby of the building here. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, if you're wanting to do this, fund this street art or artist coalition or mural art for artists, because you're wanting to get rid of unsightly tagging, one of the reasons that people tag, and I'm not an artist, I'm not a street artist, I don't tag, is due to the lack of free speech and democracy and the lack of representation that they find right here in this room. And, the Northwest Examiner editor, Alan Klausman, said, the best cure for the lack of democracy is more democracy. I guess Chloe went there and they didn't respond to her well. There she is.
So Maggie, again, and I know I
so-
say
Have
this
to do
every
with
week, I
anything.
sound like a broken record.
I'm just,
This is
I'm
on a
talking about
specific
art.
ordinance.
I'm talking
Okay.
about democracy
Please bring it
here.
back. Thank
It's
you.
whether
talking
you're
about-
for or against this item, once again.
I would like to see homeless artists engage in this. I would like to see them invited in because they're traditionally excluded from all these art projects. And I would like them to do an art project that is about the disempowerment of everyone from HUD to their contractors, to the representatives, to the bureaucracies, all the way on down, making it some terrible big secret about the way things operate regarding housing and healthcare.
Thank you, Maggie.
And, yeah.
Appreciate it.
They
And
can do
that last suggestion is a good one. And when we heard the folks for communications, I think they explicitly raised that as an important possibility with their pilot in the Central East Side. So I'm sure we'll hear more on that as well. Thank you. Next three.
The last two who signed up are Jeanne Connet and Stan Herman.
All righty, come on up. Good morning.
Good morning. Jeanne Connet, for the record. There is this lovely mural across the street from where I live, and it changes, I don't know how often, I don't care. They're kids, and they come and they create this beautiful mural. I think there's been like 2 or 3 of them since I've lived there, and I've only lived there since March 9th of 18. And so I want to say that I'm very, very happy to hear that you guys are supporting this. I also think, oh, Trump, here's your line. We need more wall. okay, guys? We just need more wall. Because if you think about how many artists are in Portland, Oregon, yeah, we don't have enough wall. But I do appreciate it. I love that mural. I get up every day, I walk out to the elevator and stop on the balcony floor and look at it, and it cheers my day. So thank you guys very much.
Thank you. Good morning.
Morning. My name's Stan Herman. I just want to add a little bit. I have a building with a mural of famous women of Portland, and it got tagged maybe a couple times in the last 15 years. So I think the quality of the product up there, the artists respect it, okay? This is, and what I'm going to offer is, I got, if you want to do a pilot project, one 200-foot wall with 10 sections. They're about 14 by 20 wide. It would be a great pilot project. It's right on Interstate Avenue. The light rail goes by it. And you should see all the visitors come in town to take pictures of the wall that I do have. And so I'm just offering that if you need a pilot program for that. And I'll just throw on one more thing on the famous women of Portland. My $3 pictures are up there too. So I don't know if you've ever seen it, but it's on Harding and Interstate.
I have, and it's
amazing.
wonderful.
You
Thank
come
you.
down Interstate Avenue, hit Russell, you'll see 1,200 square foot mural there. Famous women of Portland.
Thank you, Stan. Appreciate it. Thank you. Does that complete public testimony on this item, Carla?
That's all who signed up, yes.
Any further discussion or questions, colleagues? Very good. This is a first reading of a non-emergency ordinance. It moves to second reading. Thank you, everyone, for the presentation, for your testimony today. Next item, and we're on schedule, is item number 746, time certain.
Authorized grant agreement with Work Systems, Inc. for the Summer Works Youth Employment Program and Black Male Achievement Initiative within city bureaus for summer 2019 for an amount not to exceed $551,600.
Colleagues, 2019 marks the 10th year of investments made by the City of Portland to the Summer Works Internship Program, which connects youth, specifically youth of color and youth who come from economically disadvantaged backgrounds, to internships within our own city bureaus. The city increased its investment in 2014 to include dedicated slots to support the Black Male Achievement, the BMA initiative. After that investment, we created a program in 2015, the Summer Youth Experience, with the aim of removing both systemic and individual barriers to create the participation and completion of internships by young Black males in our community. Since 2010, city funding has supported 1,550 summer jobs, creating opportunities for youth in our community to learn more about local government. The city has leveraged its Summer Works investments for the Portland Means Progress initiative. A few highlights. This year, approximately 45 African-American young men are participating in Summer Works and the Summer Youth Experience. Young men who identify as Black African-American who participate in both Summer Works and Summer Youth Experience have consistently and successfully completed their Summer Works internships more than 90% of the time since 2015. I'm grateful to the staff of Black Male Achievement who've identified some of the policy and procedural barriers that Black and African-American young men face, and want to recognize the coordination with our partners at Work Systems and the Immigrant and Refugee Community Organization, otherwise known as IRCO, to address these important issues. Youth who participate in Summer Works have shown higher high school graduation rates, have higher rates of post-secondary education than similar groups. In addition to internships at the city, we also share slots with disadvantaged minority women, emerging small business nonprofits across the city, which adds another important layer of partnership to this highly successful program. I'd like to thank Tiffany Penson of OMS, CJ Robbins, who I'm going to turn this over to in just a moment, from the Office of Equity and Human Rights, Barbara Timmons of Work Systems, and Nicole Grant from my office for their commitment to this effort. I'm going to turn this over to CJ Robbins.
Thank you, Mayor Wheeler.
Good morning.
Good morning, Council. I'm excited to have another opportunity to have a conversation with you all directly. My name is CJ Robbins, as Mayor Wheeler stated there. I coordinate Black male achievement efforts for the City of Portland out of the Office of Equity and Human Rights. And that for the City of Portland part is just drowned into me, so you'll have to excuse me. I know you all know that. Besides that, I just wanted, I'm here to actually introduce our partner. I just wanted to take a quick second. My hero passed away yesterday, day before yesterday, in Toni Morrison. And I just wanted to bring out a quote that is really apropos for this moment, I believe, and for this presentation from her, which is, just remember that your real job is that if you are free, you need to free somebody else. If you have some power, then your job is to empower somebody else. And I believe that that very much fits for our investment in SummerWorks as a city, and for our specific investment when it comes to Black male achievement in Black young men, and some who would also consider themselves boys at 15 and 16 as well. As Mayor Wheeler shared some of the statistics, I won't go into those. I'll just say that this year we've had another opportunity to connect directly with young men that we otherwise would not have an opportunity to know and to help grow and guide. And we have found specific opportunities where we can improve our partnership and engage year-round on that. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Barbara Temper, the Youth Services Manager for Work Systems, who will share a brief presentation and whom I also work with directly to improve those outcomes in SummerWorks.
Thanks, CJ.
Thanks, CJ.
I do have a presentation. Did you get, okay. All right, I'll wing it, I guess, since we don't have the presentation queued up. Thank you, Mayor Wheeler and City Commissioners, for inviting me here today to talk about SummerWorks. It's a program that's near and dear to my heart, as I was there at the very beginning in 2009. So as I've been introduced, my name is Barb Temper, and I'm the Youth Services Manager at Work Systems. I wanted to just kind of do an overview of our program and think about like where, from the beginning where we started. As Mayor Wheeler said, this is the 10th year of the city's investment in SummerWorks. And our program started at the height of the recession when youth unemployment was well over 30%. It was a crisis. And so our response and the evolution and creation of SummerWorks was really get as many youth working as we can, provide essential workplace skills, give youth an opportunity to apply classroom learning to the real world of work, get money into the local economy, and provide a positive summer activity as a bridge back to school in the fall. And I feel like we've met that goal year after year after year after year. The city's investment, as was pointed out, this year the total investment brings us to supporting 1,550 summer jobs. Over the past 10 years, that investment has resulted in over $2.5 million of gross wages paid to interns. Through our program, we've developed a referral network of over 170 school, community-based, and faith-based organizations that refer young people they work with into our program every year. We serve, on average, 79% of youth identify as a person of color. And on average, 90% of the youth that we serve are also economically disadvantaged, either receiving public assistance or eligible for free and reduced lunch. The program design overview is a little bit hard without the slide, but okay. Our program is fairly straightforward. We outreach to the community in springtime to ask our referral partners to target youth who are underrepresented, motivated, really are interested in having an opportunity to work, but maybe don't have the resources, social networks, family networks to really help them make that bridge into the world of work. Even in today in our economy where there are lots and lots of jobs, the step of actually applying, waiting, maybe getting called, not getting called is still fairly intimidating for a lot of young people when it's their first time out. So SummerWorks really helps to create success and build confidence for young people. So youth sign up. We provide them with some essential workplace skills training. They work a 180-hour internship, and they're paid whatever the current minimum wage is. They receive support such as bus passes or appropriate workplace clothing or tools that they may need to be successful in their work site. And then we also provide a success coach, and the coach is there to really help the youth be successful as well as support our worksite supervisors that provide that opportunity for youth. After the program is over, we have youth are returning to high school, moving on to post-secondary, returning to post-secondary, getting jobs, or enlisting in the military. We have probably every year less than 10% of the youth say, I don't have any plans. So youth are taking this opportunity and moving forward into other positive activities in their life. SummerWorks really is a critical piece for youth development because young people who are employed are more likely to graduate from high school. Early work experiences help youth become more confident, responsible, and self-confident, discover new interests and build skills, boost financial awareness. Oh, here we are. Build positive and professional social networks. In conjunction with this slide, let me see if I can move us forward quickly. This slide actually and the graphic on it came from a presentation or some information that's provided by JP Morgan Chase. And I'm really happy to be able to share that in summer 2019, Portland became one of the cities nationally that the JP Morgan Chase Foundation is supporting with summer jobs by making a $300,000 commitment over the next 3 years to support our summer programming. So that's a little bit about what SummerWorks is about. Sort of where are we going or where have we been going? SummerWorks, we every year get more applications, more interest from youth than we have the ability to fund. As you can see, over the last 4 years, we've had more than double the number of applications than we've really been able to provide work sites. So 2 years ago, we started an initiative called Connect to Careers. And Connect to Careers utilizes the same platform and the same process as SummerWorks. It just is an opportunity for young people to get support in making a transition to get that first employment opportunity where they're being hired actually by the business. We provide the application, work readiness training, a peer coach versus an adult success coach to help support youth through the process of interviewing and applying and that process. Having the C2C program, also it's a year-round program. It's not just in the summer, so it's a place for young people to be able to come to look for jobs, find help in securing jobs, getting mock interviews, resume support, so that they can be successful to compete on the open job market. Having the year-round programming also has allowed us to have an infrastructure for year-round work experiences, which also is key to supporting the Portland Means Progress goal around youth work experience.
And if I could just do a shout out for the job fairs, they've been extremely well attended.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
really
We
good
also,
program.
2 years ago, added the youth job fairs, and they have been really a great opportunity as well. Thank you. So, Summer Works, this is, as it's been mentioned, this is actually the 11th summer of Summer Works. And we do kind of every year at the end of the summer take a step back and say what worked well, what didn't work well, and try to make program enhancements and improvements. CJ talked about how can we do better. This year, we introduced a new front-end application process, and it would be an understatement for me to say we haven't gotten a lot of feedback about that. And so I do want to acknowledge that there have been some challenges, but we are taking a look at that over the coming months. Summer Works is still really needed. Young people, especially the 16 to 19-year-old age group, are still struggling. Their unemployment rate is above 12%. For youth of color, particularly young black men and brown men, the unemployment rate is even higher. It's even more of a struggle, particularly in that age group. So Summer Works is still a needed, or the ability to provide young people work experience is still very needed in our community. So part of the next steps process in our Act, Plan, Do, Check is that we are looking to convene and give the community an opportunity to have input. So our funding partners, our community partners, youth, to help inform us about how to do it better, what more is needed. We're looking to expand our community-based partnerships. We're looking to have a broader adoption of our essential skills training by K through 12 as well as CBOs. If the essential skills training is happening during the school year, it means youth are just ready to start working in the summer sooner.
What does CBO mean?
Oh, community-based organizations. I apologize. Get caught up in jargon too often. We're looking to increase our private sector involvement, and of course, looking to continue to partner with the city and other public, local and state government for support. Some of the things that we'll be looking at in terms of potential modifications to our program would be year-round paid work experiences in the same way that we have summer. Looking to create a connected experience for more highly barriered youth so that there is a continuum of service. Create earn and learn opportunities, so paying youth while they're actually learning skills. And then looking to have some stackable experiences that could lead to apprenticeship or entry-level career track jobs. These are all ideas that we have and want to be able to work together to bring that to fruition if that's the direction we all think we need to go. So I just again want to thank you. The city's support has been tremendous, and our program would not exist in the way that it does without it. So thank you.
Very good. Commissioner Fish.
Yeah, I have a couple questions, and thank you for an excellent presentation. So you have 10 or 11 years of data tracking participants in this program.
Mm-hmm.
How many of those young people have received offers of employment from the city of Portland?
That's a really great question that I don't have a solid answer to. I know that we have a number of youth who are actually working for the city that started as Summer Works interns, but I will have to get back to you. We've never sort of done that cross-check of who on our list from 10 years is now an employee of the city.
Is it fair to say that should be one of our goals?
It should be one of our goals, and it is something that we've been talking about. We've been talking about working collaboratively within HR department as well as the unions to see if we could create a sort of an entry-level apprenticeship type of position at the city where youth would have an opportunity for summer work experience connected with specific educational classes at high school that would qualify them for that kind of an apprenticeship or an opportunity to be considered for entry-level employment at the city?
Yeah, I mean, we're looking at an enormous number of employees who will be retiring.
Yes.
There's tremendous opportunities, and Mayor, I think we should find a way to be a little more intentional about tracking opportunities that these young people have to come and work for the city, the county, local government. These are fantastic entry-level jobs.
Yes.
With benefits. So I look forward to getting that data. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, this is good. And I want to acknowledge my summer works intern who's here, Caleb Bird, who has just started. Caleb, could you give a big wave here so everybody can see you? I don't know yet because he's new enough that I can't tell you whether he's found the experience valuable, but I'm pretty sure he hasn't been bored yet. So
that's good.
We'll check in later, but we're glad to have you, Caleb, and we're really glad to be able to leverage this program.
Thank you.
Commissioner Daly.
I would also like to recognize my Summer Works intern, Ocean Eel, who's in the back here.
Excellent.
We've had Summer Works interns every summer, and they're always invited back. Sometimes they do come back, but sometimes they move on to more prestigious internships, and I'm happy to be a stepping stone.
Great.
And really love and support the program.
Great,
And thank you for the Toni Morrison quote. I've been at a loss for words to express how I feel about her passing, so it's nice to have an acknowledgement in council.
Of course, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for a great, Commissioner Fritz.
Is there any reason that we can't put an emergency clause on this ordinance? For the purpose of getting the money out the door as quickly as possible?
Yeah, there's no, I mean, if you can add,
I move
amend.
to add the emergency clause for the purpose of getting the money.
Second.
We have a
Thank you.
motion from Commissioner Fritz, a second from Commissioner Fish. Any further discussion on the motion? Call the roll.
Udaley?
Well, I think I already made.
This is just on the
Oh,
motion,
the
'cause we had
emergency
to have
clause. Oh, right,
testimony
right. Okay, aye.
Fritz?
Aye.
Fish?
Aye.
Wheeler?
Aye, the motion carries. The amendment's on the table.
Carmen, has anyone signed up to testify?
Yes, we have two people.
Very good. Thanks for the presentation. CJ, go
If I
ahead.
may, really quick, before we
bet.
wrap up, I just wanted to lean into, I think there's a tremendous opportunity,
Yeah.
Commissioner Fish, when it comes to the sharing of data and to understanding the young people better. I think that is a significant growth edge for us. And I think we can.
I agree.
It will take work both on the city side and on the side of work systems and some agreements as to how we'll share data, and I think we can do that.
Well, I'll just give you an example that you may want to look at. In my office, we've had enormous success hiring from the Women's Leadership Program at Portland State University. So they have annually a group of graduates of the program. We've hired 3 or 4 distinguished graduates of that program. They are referred to us. We have regular openings in my office because all my best people get stolen by bureaus, by the governor, by the mayor, by other offices, by other employers, which goes to that point you made when you quoted Toni Morrison about empowering people. It's a double-edged sword. You know, you hire great people and then they are lured to other jobs. Well, that's part of our job, is to give them the chance to succeed, and then that becomes visible, and they're recruited for other jobs. But I would urge you to talk to Senna Lawrence and my team about the success. I think that if we approach this from the point of view of we got to have an intergovernmental agreement, a set of protocols and some rules, we're going to spend a year and we're not going to get very far. If we approach it from the point of view that there are existing networks that are highly successful in planting graduates in city jobs through their own informal networks, I think that's a first start. And if this program can be as successful as the Women's Leadership Program at PSU in giving people opportunities, we'll be hiring a lot more people.
I appreciate
Yep.
the direction, the leadership, and the advice there. We always lose. I go by the Pete Carroll School of Development, which says we are always going to lose our best people. I've lost one of my best interns this year. I would say not lost. I would say it's flourished, right, to the mayor's office in Caleb Byrd.
I see how this conversation started to go.
But it's where he needs to be to grow. And so grateful for that and grateful and appreciate that as well. So, yeah, thank you, Commissioner.
And thank you, CJ. On behalf of my team, Caleb came ready to go.
Yeah.
He's hit the ground running.
He's absolutely one of our
And
best.
that's sort of all of our this is our compact to each other, I suppose, is
Mhm.
that we're all going to continue to help leverage and lift and encourage and coach and counsel. And that's where I think the real value is. So we're appreciative. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Very good. Public testimony. 2 people, I believe, signed up.
Yes, Maggie and Jeanne Connet.
Great. Thanks, CJ.
I don't see her. Again, Jeanne Connet. Good morning.
Morning.
Good afternoon, whatever it is now.
Jan, could you pull the mic just a little closer to you?
Okay,
Thanks.
is that better?
Yeah, or it slides. It'll actually move.
If I get closer around, I got a voice that went over Dad's
Okay,
race
that's
car
fine.
in the garage, and I don't want to sound
All
you
right,
out.
no worries. Good enough.
I think this is a wonderful program. I wish you could get it to apply to the children at Holiday Park who really need something else to do other than we're a gang and we'll kill you. I have recently found out again that the shopping in Lloyd Center, the rates are going down. A couple more years and we'll probably lose the building and quit everything because of the problem in Holiday Park. Aside from that, on this fact, I think you all are doing a wonderful job, and I really appreciate it. And Mayor Ted Wheeler, I have a request. After whatever, if you have time at some point, would you walk around the city with me? And I'd like to point out some of the art that is not murals, but put into the buildings as they are created, so we can get a handle on this rat box thing, okay? And thanks for making me famous. I walk down the street now and everybody's like, oh, wait, you go to council. I got this problem, I got that problem, we need to do this. So thanks for making me, you know.
Next thing, you'll be asking for an office.
You're dang right.
Okay,
Chris. You're
good.
dang right, Nick.
We'll forward all the
right.
emails.
I thank you guys very much.
Thanks for being here today. We
Yeah.
appreciate it. Very good. Anything else, colleagues? This is, actually, we're going to vote on the motion because it's been amended. So please call the roll on the motion as amended.
Well, thank you for the presentation. Thank you for all your hard work. Congratulations to the interns in particular. Happy to support this program. I vote aye.
Fritz.
The Summer Works and Summer Youth Experience programs are core to the mission of the Black Male Achievement Initiative, which aims to enhance opportunities for Black men and youth in the areas of education, family life, employment, and the criminal justice system. I'm very pleased with the progress that the partnership has made. I'm also pleased that you're doing the evaluation process, because I think we would all agree that there are definitely some improvements that can be made, particularly if we have adequate funding for them. So thank you for that, and I'd like to be involved in those conversations. Thank you, CJ Robbins and Dr. Markeisha Smith in the Office of Equity and Human Rights. Your work is crucial and meaningful, and I really appreciate you being here today to give this presentation. Thank you, Tiffany Penson in the Office of Management and Finance, who was not able to be here today, for her steadfast championing and coordination of this process. I believe this was Mayor Sam Adams, along with Kelly Thornlad and Tiffany Penson, who got this and the Future Connect program going. And I echo Commissioner Fish's request for us to do tracking and maybe in your annual reports to tell us how many graduates of the, the program have been employed by the City of Portland. We asked the Future Connect program to tell us that when they presented last year. And so we really do want everybody to know that the City of Portland is looking for good people, qualified people at all different levels of our government so that we can truly reflect the beauty and diversity of our communities. Thank you, Barbara Temper from Work Systems, Inc., from our partners at the Immigrant and Refugee Community Organization. I was hearing about the workload of some of the coordinators yesterday, and I was just, wow, how young people in coordinator positions are doing an amazing job as well. So maybe next time bring one of those folks to come and talk with us as well. Happy to support this. Aye.
Fish.
Aye.
Wheeler.
I, again, just want to thank CJ and Barb for being here today. It was an excellent presentation, and Tiffany Penson from OMF has been very, very engaged in this program in the community, and of course, Nick Grant from my office. I just want to acknowledge them and thank them for their hard work. Obviously, this is a great program. I'm happy to continue to champion it, and I look forward to some of the areas that were mentioned as future potential areas for this program to evolve towards. And I support each and every one of those items that was listed on the slide. I vote aye. The ordinance is adopted as amended. Thank you.
I left out one thing. Mayor Wheeler, I finally got a cop to say he gets to do his job and things are getting better.
Glad to hear
I
it.
just wanted to say
Thank you. Thanks for passing that along. I appreciate it. All right, so now we go to the regular agenda, item 761, please.
Appoint Dan Carlson, Tom Lish, Byrick Shillam, and reappoint Carla Devine and Jesse Fox to the River Community Advisory Committee for terms for 3-year terms.
Colleagues, today I'm requesting council confirmation to appoint 3 new members to the River Community Advisory Committee, Dan Carlson, Tom Lish, and Byrick Shillam, and reappoint 2 existing members, Carla Devine and Jesse Fox. It's a privilege to recommend such qualified members in our community to provide guidance on floating structures to the Bureau of Development Services. Dan Carlson, who is a floating home resident for over 25 years, has built 4 floating homes, held multiple Tomahawk Island Community Board positions, and served on the board of directors of Park Place Condominiums. He currently serves as a board member for the Waterfront Organization of Oregon. Tom Lish, a floating home resident, brings over 30 years of experience in the construction industry, building various kinds of homes, including those that are on the river. And last but not least, of course, our recommended new appointment is Byrick Shillam, an accomplished floating homeowner, contractor, and realtor. Thank you, Carla Devine and Jesse Fox, for your service to the City of Portland and being important contributors to the committee since October of 2015. Both of you have brought insights to these floating home communities and helped inform the council on the unique aspects of these communities. The Bureau of Development Services and I are confident that these 2 individuals will continue to be very, very important to our work going forward. David Thibault with the Bureau of Development Services is here to answer any additional questions that we might have, and I'd like to thank David and his colleagues for a very successful recruitment process. Thank you, sir. Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor Wheeler. Appreciate it. I'm here to answer any questions that you guys might have regarding the RCAC, which is the acronym for the River Community Advisory Committee.
And were any of these individuals, they were able to show up today, so maybe we can just hear a little bit about
Dan Carlson
in their own voice.
Here's Dan right here.
Great.
And Tom Lish has showed up. Byrick had something come up and he had a conflict and couldn't make it this morning.
No worries. Gentlemen, thanks for being here. We appreciate it. And maybe you could just give us a couple of sentences. What do you think the main issues are going to be going forward? What should we as a council keep our ear to the ground on, or in this case, to the water on?
Well, I would suggest that one of the main reasons we're here is with regards to permitting process that comes to front on the waterfront versus some of the differences between the waterfront and land-based residences. So that'll be a big part of it. We're also looking at the what's to be done with the homeless boat situation on the river. We want to be involved with that. Something needs to be done. There's a lot of expenses involved in that. Another thing we discovered this morning, being part of River Community, a couple of weeks ago, I saw a boat stranded out in the middle of the Columbia River, and went over to, I was in my boat with my wife, went over to offer assistance, ended up towing them in, and that person turns out to be the one sitting next to me today. And we didn't know we were coming in here.
Aren't you glad you didn't just motor on past him? That would have been awkward.
Well, it is true of everywhere in life, what goes around comes around.
Yes, sir.
So can I follow up on that for a second, Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Because I'm trying to remember the last time the River Community Advisory Committee came before us with recommendations, or we got a letter of some sort. And I know that your primary responsibility is to advise the Bureau of Development Services, but the issues that you just described cut against many, are cross-jurisdictional. So I have the honor, for example, of being in charge of Bureau of Environmental Services, Portland Parks and Rec, and Superfund. So we get a lot of emails from people concerned about derelict boats. The problem is the public doesn't generally understand, and I can't say I understand from memory, which dock is controlled by what entity. We have private docks, we have public docks, we have docks licensed by the state, we have a whole mishmash. And so it's not as easy as saying, well, here's a vessel that's sinking at a dock. We first have to determine, who manages the dock, who's responsible. Some of these derelict boats that you're referring to are also at risk of releasing sewage and, in addition, oil and gas and other things into the water, which certainly goes against our cleanup goals. So I just want to encourage you, if there are recommendations for how we do a better job in any of the areas that you're responsible for, I would ask you to think broader than just advising the Bureau of Development Services. And you certainly have the right as a advisory committee to CC other bureaus if you want us to hear about your recommendations.
Thank you, yeah, and I'm also a board member of the Waterfront Owners Organization, and the Waterfront Owners Organization is very involved in that, and speaking with a lot of different bureaus that have influence on the waterfront. The Multnomah County, Clackamas County, the Sheriff's Departments, the Bureau of Land Management, Marine Board, on down the line, they all have a hand in managing our riverfronts. So we're, again, WU is very interested in and willing to work too. And we'll forward you.
Yeah, and I think helping people understand that there is a complex regulatory stew of federal, state, and local. You mentioned Marine Board, you didn't mention the Coast Guard. People complain sometimes about bridges, and when they come up, of course, neither the county nor the city have anything to do with that. But the more we can let people know who is responsible for what activity on the river, I think the better. And the more we are getting real-time recommendations from you as to things we should be thinking about, the better as well. So I would encourage you to CC other bureaus.
Thank you.
Great. We thank you for your service. Is there anybody else who had any further discussion? Thank you both for being here. What do you think are some of the big issues? Would you concur that those were the right issues, or is there
Should have
other
spoke
issues?
first, because he took all my ideas.
He took all right, good, good.
Yeah, and from a slightly different angle,
And could you state your name for the record?
I'm
I
sorry,
apologize.
Tom Lish.
Thanks, Tom, I appreciate it.
A lot of the stuff I think that's involved with this group focuses on the residential part of it, and I'm hoping to also kind of bring some of the commercial use into it. For example, right now, my company, we're working on several of the fire stations and police stations on the river, doing upgrades and whatnot to those. So it's kind of to pull all that together, not just the residential. There's also the commercial side of it. And then one of the things that's pretty big right now, like Dan had said, was and it's not just the derelict boats, it's the homeless
Camps.
living on the side of the river, just, sinking boats, creating creating some issues that we're trying to kind of get in, learn more about, figure out the best way, best people to contact.
Yeah, and it is a complicated issue.
It
And
is.
having once served on an arcane but really important board called the Oregon Land Board, I learned more than I ever want to learn in my entire lifetime about submerged and submersible lands. And I know that the Department of State Lands has also been actively engaged in this conversation. The Marine Board's been engaged, I think, to some degree into this conversation. I believe there was even recently a fairly significant action by the state with regard to some abandoned and derelict vessels on the Willamette River. And so this is all a complicated and thorny issue, but it's an important one. And I appreciate that we have people who are keeping their eyes on this process on a regular basis.
Well, Mayor, I think we have wonderful appointees. I move the report.
Second.
We have a motion from Commissioner Fish, a second from Commissioner Fritz. Any further discussion? We appreciate your being here. Carla, please call the roll.
Udaley?
Well, thank you for stepping up and being willing to volunteer your time and expertise. I vote aye.
You're welcome.
Fritz?
Thank you for your service. Aye.
Fish?
Join my colleagues in just saying thank you. You are busy people with lots of things you could be doing, but to provide this kind of public service says that you're deeply committed to your city and the region, and we're grateful for that. Aye.
Wheeler?
Thank you.
Thank you for stepping up, and we appreciate those who are also earning reappointments today. I vote aye. The report's accepted. The appointments are approved. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. You bet. Next item, 762, please.
Accept bid of Anderson Environmental Consulting LLC for the City of Portland Fuel Station Replacements Project for $4,078,258.
Thank you. And we have Lester Spittler. All right, Lester, you starting off the conversation today?
Yes.
Great,
yes,
thank you. Thank you both for being here.
Yes. Good morning, Mayor Wheeler, City Council. I'm Lester Spittler, the Chief Procurement Officer. I have Jana here, the project manager for this project. CPO report. So council approved the ordinance 189158 on September 5th, 2018 to authorize us to competitively solicit for the project. Facility Services within the Office of Management and Finance managed this project for Fleet. They had a construction estimate of $5,071,005. The confidence level in that estimate was high. We issued an invitation to bid, and bids came in on July 2nd of 2019. Unfortunately, we only received one bid. We did, however, have 6 contractors show up at the pre-bid conference. 2 of them submitted a pre-qualification. Because of the nature of this work, we required contractors to get pre-qualified before they could submit a bid. So we had 6 attend the pre-bid, 2 submit for pre-qualification. And unfortunately, we only had 1 bid submitted. There was the second contractor who was pre-qualified submitted his bid late, so he had intended to bid, but he didn't get his bid in on time. So I think that's important information for council to know. Even though we only received 1 bid, it was a competitive opportunity. We identified an aspirational goal of 20% utilization of certified contractors and suppliers for this project. Anderson Environmental Contracting LLC is a state of Oregon certified service-disabled veteran business enterprise. However, we typically don't count the prime contractor's self-performance of work towards our subcontractor goals. So even though the prime is certified, they also identified additional certified subcontractors, and there's a table in the CPO report that shows the subcontractor, their certification, the area of work, the ownership, and the amount of work that they are expected to receive. That certified subcontractor utilization only amounts to 3.11%, but again, the prime contractor is also certified. There's a table in the CPO report that shows the non-certified subcontractors that will perform on the work as well. Anderson Environmental is located in Kelso, Washington. They're in compliance with all of the City of Portland's business tax registration. And with that, we recommend acceptance of this report and authorization of the contract.
Very good. Colleagues, I'll entertain a motion unless there's any further discussion.
I just have a
Commissioner
question.
Fritz?
In the report to council, which thank you, you've made these really clear for us. It says that Don Hines Truck Sales is DMWES&B, but then it says the ownership is Caucasian male.
That must be a typo. I can get back to you on that. That can't be
We don't know
accurate.
which way it is.
Right. Well, they can't be a WBE.
I would thought not. That was a bit of a giveaway.
Yeah, so I'm sorry,
So my question is, are they not certified, or is the identification of the ownership incorrect?
they are certified, the identification is incorrect in the CPO report. And I can follow up with their specific
That
certification.
minor detail. I appreciate you giving us all these details so I can nitpick at them.
Yes.
Thank you.
No, that's a good catch, Commissioner. Thank you for that. Any further discussion? Great. I'll just put the obvious statement on the table. I hope the day comes when we don't have to maintain or replace these stations. We're trying, as you know, with our fleets to move towards electric vehicles and alternative fuel sources. And I understand that with some of our larger vehicles, particularly first responder vehicles, we still need to have these facilities, and therefore they have to be up to code, and they have to be safe, and they have to be environmentally sound. But I just want to acknowledge that we want to continue to move towards alternative, clean sources of fuel and energy. I vote aye. The report's accepted.
Thank you.
We didn't move or second it.
Oh, I thought somebody moved it. I'm sorry, I apologize. That was the last one. I was reading the wrong thing.
Second.
In retroaction, we have a motion from Commissioner Udaley, a second from Commissioner Fritz. Please call the roll. I apologize. I think I've ruined the suspense on how I'm voting on this.
Udaley? Fritz?
Thank you for all the work that goes into this and for a nice, succinct presentation. Aye.
Fish?
Aye.
Wheeler?
I'm going to keep you hanging for a couple of minutes here. No, thank you for your hard work on this. I appreciate it. And thank you, Commissioner Fritz, for actually identifying that inconsistency. I think it is important that we get that right for the record, so thank you for that. I vote aye. The report's accepted. Thanks for your hard work on this. Appreciate it. Next item. We're going to read two together. Could we read 763 and 774 together, please?
763, accept bid of Stetler Supply Company doing business as Stetler Supply and Construction for the Northeast Broadway and 94th Pump Station Upgrade Project for $1,799,126. And 774, amend ordinance to authorize a competitive solicitation and contract with the lowest responsible bidder for construction of Northeast Broadway and 94th Pump Station Upgrade, project number E10783, in the amount of $1,799,126.
Commissioner Fish.
Mayor and colleagues, the Bureau of Environmental Services manages the city's stormwater and sewer infrastructure, including 99 pump stations. Those pump stations help ensure that sewage is conveyed to the Columbia Boulevard wastewater treatment plant. In March, City Council unanimously authorized a contract with the lowest responsible bidder to upgrade the Northeast Broadway pump station because of its deteriorating condition. Today's ordinance, that is 763, amends the contract amount and corrects a scrivener's error. So we'll first have a report from Lester Spittler, Chief Procurement Officer, and Paul Sudo, BES Engineering Manager, and then we'll take up 774. Gentlemen?
Good morning. I'm Lester Spittler, Paul Sudo. As Commissioner Fish said, on March 27th, Council approved the ordinance 189438. We subsequently issued a competitive invitation to bid, for which the estimate was $1.2 million at 90% design. The confidence level on that estimate was high. Bids were opened on June 18th. We received two bids. The lowest responsive bid is from Stetler Supply Company, DBA Stetler Supply and Construction. We received, we applied our 20% aspirational goal to this project, and Stetler Supply is able to achieve the subcontractors that are listed on the first page of your report. It lists the subcontractor, the certification, which it looks like these are all correct, the area of work, and then the ownership as well as the amount of each of those subcontracts. The total of that, however, is only 10.72% of the overall amount. Stetler is also subcontracting 30.6% to non-certified subcontractors. Those are listed on the second page of your report, and they are self-performing 58.68%. They are not a certified contractor. They're located in Salem, Oregon, and they are in compliance with all of the city's contract requirements. I have Paul Sudo here if there's any questions, but otherwise, we recommend that you accept this report and authorize execution of the contract.
Paul, do you have anything you want to add?
Yeah, I can at least speak to the Scrivener's error that you mentioned. The original ordinance that was approved back in March 2019 did not had that error. So what it didn't do is it didn't authorize the chief procurement officer to facilitate the competitive solicitation of the bids for this project. So the amendment in 774 is intended to basically clean that up. And then the other thing I wanted to mention is that original ordinance also had it fixed the contract award amount to the engineer's estimate of 1.2 million, but as Lester had mentioned, the bids that came in higher than that. And I just wanted to make a couple of comments about that, about why we believe they were higher. What we're noticing now, the bidding climate is extremely competitive, meaning we're not seeing many bidders on projects. In this case, we only had 2 bidders that were very close. I think they were within about 1.5% of each other on bids. We did have 6 contractors attend the pre-bid meeting, and we're trying to track some of what's going on with our peer agencies nearby, and we've known recently with a neighboring utility, they had a similar experience where they only had 2 bids and they came in at about 43% over the engineer's estimate. So I just wanted to offer that for some context.
Colleagues, we had a similar experience recently with Leach Botanical Garden. We are seeing a pattern with bidding on Bureau of Environmental Services contracts. I also spoke today, or not today, but within the last 2 weeks with a major construction company in town that said that they are booked through the next 2 years with work and that they're at maximum capacity. What we are seeing is less competition because companies are already very busy. And so these are nice to have contracts. They're not need to have contracts. We're seeing labor shortages, which in turn bids up the prices. And we're seeing uncertainty as a result of the tariff debate, which is causing certain materials that we rely on, the price of which to go up. We saw that in Leach Botanical Garden with steel. We see it with these other projects. So we are seeing higher bids come in. This is a good news, bad news scenario. Obviously, we'd like to see as much competition as possible and bids as close to the engineer's estimate as possible. On the other hand, it validates what we're hearing from the CBO and from our finance team at the city, which is that the local economy continues to roar, and that will be to our long-term benefit. So good news, bad news, but I think that helps put in context why we're getting bids above our engineers' estimates.
Thank you, Commissioner. That makes sense. Thank you for that.
I move the report on 673.
Second.
We have a motion from Commissioner Fish, a second from Commissioner Daly. Any further discussion on the report? Seeing none, Carla, please call the roll.
Daly?
Aye.
Fritz?
Thank you for your presentation. Aye.
Fish?
Aye.
Wheeler?
Aye. The report's accepted. To the ordinance, Commissioner Fish.
This is not an emergency, so this just goes to a second reading.
Okay, any further discussion on the ordinance? This is a first reading of a non-emergency ordinance. It moves to second reading. Thank you for the presentation.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
Next item, 764, please.
Authorize water revenue bonds to finance water system capital improvements and refund water revenue bonds.
Commissioner Fish?
Nope, me.
Oh, sorry, Commissioner Fritz.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a really good news story. Good work from the staff both in water and in revenue who do our debt service management. It's a refinancing, which they will explain, and it will provide a net debt service savings of about $6.1 million. So basically like refinancing your house, and it saves a boatload of money for the ratepayers, which will provide savings in future years.
That's correct. Yeah. Hi, I'm Matt Gierock, the debt manager in the Bureau of Revenue and Financial Services. Good morning, Commissioners and Mayor Wheeler. By approving this ordinance, the city's debt management division, on behalf of the Portland Water Bureau, will be authorized to issue up to $160 million of bonds to finance water system improvements and additions. Some of the key projects being funded include the Bull Run Water Filtration Plant Project, the Washington Park Reservoir Project, the Willamette River Crossing Project, and the Corrosion Control Improvement Project. Additionally, this ordinance will authorize the refinancing of existing water system revenue bonds with the purpose of obtaining debt service savings or other favorable terms. The refinancing authorization is expected to refund the Series 2010 A bonds in the amount of $55.7 million. Based on current market rates, executing this refinancing is expected to result in approximately $6 million of debt service savings on a net present value basis. And these bonds are currently scheduled to sell the week of October 7th. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
And just to be clear, you're saying the $6 million will be derived over the life of the bonds, is that correct?
That's correct.
And these are 20-year term bonds?
They're 25-year term bonds when they're initially issued. So since we're hitting the call date on these, there'll be 15 years remaining.
Great. This is one of the smartest and easiest things that we can do to actually help save budgets in out years. This doesn't necessarily derive a lot of benefit for us right here and now, but it'll certainly make a difference over the long run, and I appreciate it. And Commissioner, thank you for bringing it forward. Is there any further discussion on this before I move it over? Seeing none, this is a... Oh, you're right. Sorry, Carla. Any testimony on this item?
Maggie and Jeanne had signed up, but I think they both left.
All right, very good. This is a first reading of a non-emergency ordinance. It moves to second reading. Thank you very much. Good work. Next item is 767, please.
Vacate portions of Southeast 106th Avenue, Southeast 108th Avenue, Southeast 110th Avenue, Southeast Bybee Boulevard, and Southeast Duke Street, south of Southeast Foster Road, subject to certain conditions and reservations.
Commissioner Udaly.
Thank you, Mayor. We are bringing you another street vacation, this time for several right-of-way parcels in Southeast that will allow BES to use them for floodplain control. Lance Lindell, right-of-way agent with PBOT, is here to explain. Welcome, Lance.
Thank you, Commissioner. I'll go ahead and get started while Carla's loading my slides for the presentation. Again, my name is Lance Lindahl, right-of-way acquisition. Before you today is a street vacation that is one of the last steps in completing the Foster Floodplain Restoration Project. This vacation has been a collaborative effort between the Bureau of Transportation and the Bureau of Environmental Services. And proposed for vacation are portions of Southeast 106th, 108th, 110th Avenues, Southeast Bybee Boulevard, and Southeast Duke Street, south of Southeast Foster Road. These streets are no longer needed for street purposes, and approval of the vacation will consolidate BES control and operations of the project area. The area proposed for vacation is showed here in yellow. Again, it's all on the south side of Foster Road. This is between 106th and 110th. The Planning Commission, Planning and Sustainability Commission reviewed this proposal and has recommended it for City Council approval. All streets within the vacation area have been removed as a part of the environmental restoration process. No PBOT facilities or improvements are currently located there. And shown here on the slide are a couple pictures showing both 106th Avenue and 108th Avenue at Foster Road looking south. And you can see the restoration project's really taking off. Trees and native plants are growing in the area now. And the city has put in sidewalks along both this portion of Foster and some of the other surrounding roads to improve public access into the restoration project area. This slide shows some of the other streets that were removed. The first photo is Southeast 110th Avenue at Southeast Cooper Street, looking north. And the second photo is Southeast Duke Street at 110th Drive, looking west. And that picture is taken directly behind the Plaid Pantry store that fronts onto Foster. And I heard from Plaid Pantry's property manager, and they're very supportive of this project and that it allows them to manage their property better, more efficiently as well. Only one city bureau responded with a condition of approval. The Bureau of Development Services has determined that a majority of the budding property owners, property parcels will lose their legal street frontage as a result of this vacation. Typically, with street vacations, lot consolidations are required by BDS when this occurs. However, in this case, all the parcels affected are already owned and fee titled by the City of Portland. and they were recently rezoned as open space as a part of the comp plan update. So this is something BDS just recently discovered too, is that if something's zoned open space, city code doesn't require it to have a public right-of-way frontage. That's all the information I have. Any questions?
I just think that's very funny to have a condition of approval saying that the condition is met. It's not like a finding more than a condition.
Yeah, they raised it out of prudence to make sure that BES was really confident that they weren't going to be selling anything off.
I love their diligence. They're really good at what they do.
Very thorough.
Thanks for the presentation. That's
Thank
helpful.
you.
Any further questions? Any testimony on this item, Carla?
I believe she left.
While you're here, I'd have to say you are very good at what you do as well. Thank you very much for your very clear report.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you. This is a first reading of a non-emergency ordinance. It moves to second reading. Thank you. And the next item is 771, also the Water Bureau.
And 72 and 73 as well.
Do you want
please.
them read together?
Yeah,
Yes?
right. I think so. Yes, please.
Yes. Okay. Carla, could you read 771, 772, and 773 together?
771, amend contract with ACOM Technical Services, Inc. to provide $1 million in additional funding for the engineer of record services required to complete the reservoir structure for the Washington Park Reservoirs Improvements Project. 772, amend contract with Cornforth Consultants, Inc. for geotechnical design services for the Washington Park Reservoir Improvements Project in the amount of $830,000. And 773, authorize a contract with West Yost Associates for construction support services for the Washington Park Reservoirs Improvement Projects in the amount of $6,199,300 using a sole source procurement.
Commissioner Fritz.
Thank you, Mayor. Colleagues, these are 3 contract amendments necessary to move forward with the Washington Park Reservoir Improvement Project. Some general background on the project. In order to comply with state and federal requirements, we have been working to construct an enclosed storage reservoir located below ground at Washington Park. When the project is completed, we will have a new 12.4 million gallon reservoir that is seismically reinforced and can supply water to 360,000 people. My staff and I toured the site several months ago. I've been told much progress has been made, so I'm looking forward to another tour. Colleagues, I would like to invite you to take a tour of this reservoir. Commissioner Leonard let me tour the bottom of the Powell Butte Reservoir when he was in charge of the Water Bureau several years ago, and it was fascinating. And it's something to tell your grandchildren, should you ever have any, which I don't as yet, that you've stood on the bottom of a reservoir that's going to be filled with water.
I can attest to the fact that progress has been made because I was up at Washington Park for some parks events last week, and there is a giant hole in the ground.
There's a giant hole in the ground, and we're going to start filling it in, and it's really interesting. Chief Engineer Teresa Elliott will give you a personalized tour, as she did when, along with Mike Sturr, for Powell Butte for me. Anyway, but I digress. These contract amendments are all within the already approved $205 million project budget. So Chief Engineer Teresa Elliott and Deputy Director Gabriel Solmer will walk us through the details of the amendments.
Thank you so much, Commissioner. My name is Gabrielle Salmer, and good morning, Mayor and Commissioners.
Morning.
We have 3 items, as Commissioner Fritz mentioned, 3 different contract changes, so 2 amendments and a new contract. And I'm joined here by Chief Engineer Teresa Elliott, and we'll walk you through those 3 contract changes. So the 3 requests that we have involve the AECOM contract, a West Yost contract, and a Cornforth contract. So we'll step through all of those so that you've got that. But first, a little bit of context for these projects.
I'm Teresa Elliott, Chief Engineer for the record. Powell Butte, or I'm sorry, you got me, it's wrong reservoir.
Wrong side.
I know, I am too. And yes, you're definitely welcome to come for a tour of the Washington Park. It is very fascinating. The Water Bureau supplies drinking water to nearly 1 million people in the Portland metro region. the large capacity reservoir at Washington Park. It's an essential part of our water system, serving the areas west of the Willamette River, most of which are by gravity up to Washington Park's elevation, and then we pump from there to all of the upper regions to comply with the federal and state mandates and to ensure healthy, resilient water system. In 2015, City Council approved our $205 million 8-year construction contract to update the Washington Park Reservoir site. The project consists of a new underground, The project consists of a new underground reservoir in the same general footprint as the historic upper reservoir number 3, and with a reflecting pool on top. The lower reservoir 4 basin and the slope on the west side are being providing landslide abatement, and the slope will be restored to its pre-reservoir 1894 condition. In addition, the Reservoir 4 basin will be converted to a bioswale reservoir overflow basin and reflecting pool against the historic dam and gatehouse. When we're complete, the underground reservoir will continue supplying water on the west side and serving more than 360,000 people, including all of the downtown businesses and residences, the Oregon Zoo, over 60 parks, 6 hospital complexes, and 20 Portland public schools on the west side of the river. Just as a reminder for those of you that weren't aware of it, we've been working on these projects since 2009 to comply with the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency's drinking water requirements to take care of the open reservoirs. In 2012, we authorized the design services, geotechnical services, and the alternative procurements for the contracts on Washington Park. And at that time, we expected that the construction would go from 2016 to 2021. In 2015, when we had a council work session, we revised our project total to $170 million. And in 2016, we realized, when we signed our construction contract, we realized that construction needed to go, rather than ending in 2021, that it would really need to go all the way through 2024. And so our contracts for AECOM expires in '21, so therefore I need to do something. And that's why we're before you today. And this slide is just to show you that we do have 2 compliance deadlines coming up in 2020, and we will meet those. Those all are related to the reservoir construction and being online itself, and then Reservoir 4 being completely disconnected from the public water system, which it is. So we're in compliance with those. The total project, though, won't be completed until 2024, 25. But it has nothing to do with the reservoir itself. It's all the final the features on top.
Just go back to that slide because I think it's really interesting again. The settlement, so it has to just sit, right? So
It has to sit for 2 years. Once the reservoir is completed itself, the site around the reservoir sits for 2 years so that it settles, and then we can build the features on top. If we don't do that, then the geotechs are telling me that we would have about a foot of movement in the areas outside where the new reservoir is at. And so we want to give it 2 years to settle and get caught up with where we built the reservoir at, and then we can build the whole reflecting pool on top of it. So now into the more specifics about the 3 council items. We would like you to amend AECOM's contract. They provide they were the primary design consultant that we hired. Due to some changes that have happened in their corporation, we've moved all of the project management services to their subconsultant, West Yos. And AECOM's role on the project has been reduced to just providing engineer of record duties and design clarifications regarding the reservoir structure itself. It's necessary for us to keep AECOM on board as the engineer of record so that we're complying with our building code requirements. This work is expected to be done in 2021, and that happens to coincide with their contract ending, the current contract ending date for them. Engineer of records are their code and permit requirements. They are responsible for the design and construction of the structures and civil infrastructures, and then they're responsible for the performance once it's in operation. The next council item is we would like to, because I need to do some kind of contract change in 2021. I am requesting to do a sole source contract now with the West Yost and move them from being a subconsultant to an actual consultant as the primary for all of the construction support services going forward to the end of the project in 2025. We've worked extensively with the city attorneys and with procurement and decided that this is, and with the consultants, and decided that this is the best time to go ahead and implement the sole source and move them out of being a subcontract. So we're asking for a sole source contract at this time in the amount of $6,200,000. The third is a contract amendment with Cornforth Geotechs. They provide our geotech design and construction services on this project. This is an extensive, if you walk out to the project, which I hope you will, it's a very intensive geotechnical work because of the ancient landslide there, because of the topography at the site. So we have chosen to employ a geotech firm that's very familiar with Washington Park and with the landslide that's there and the geology that we need to be concerned about. And so their services currently end in 2021. We would like to extend their work to 2023 to make sure that all of the geotech work that's being done, they're monitoring and watching that, and that we would like to, by doing that, we'd also like to add $830,000 to their contract. Just a construction photo of what it was looking like maybe about 3 weeks ago. It's a very big hole, and there's a lot of equipment there, and we are presently working on floors and walls. We've got the foundation in, and we're getting ready to start on columns as well.
Can I ask you a question about
Sure.
this? So I was looking at this the other day, and I was trying to envision it. Is the floor that we're seeing there, is that the floor of the new underground
Yes.
reservoir?
Everything you're seeing is the underground reservoir.
Okay, so in the months ahead, we will see then the casing for the underground reservoir constructed? Is that sort
That's
of the
correct.
next big phase? Okay, thanks. I was just trying to get my bearings. Commissioner Fritz, did you have a
Do they get the
comment?
trucks in and out with cranes?
Actually, we have 8, until we close the last wall section, they're able to drive in at the north end up by Sherwood Boulevard. Once we build that last wall section, they will have to be loaded in and out by crane. And right now, we have 2 of those big tower cranes on site, moving material back and forth.
Yeah, we don't want to see any Mr. McGillicuddies down there, right?
No, we don't.
Good, all right. You don't know that reference?
I don't. I think it
Steam
might
shovel?
be before my time.
It probably was. But you guys remember that?
I actually do.
That's funny.
You can go ahead and go forward.
No one's going to tell me. Okay.
No,
I don't know.
Mr.
I guess it's
McGillicuddy and
obviously
his
an
steam
American
shovel,
thing,
they dug and they dug and they dug. It was a children's
the
book.
children's
And they
book,
got
yes.
stuck in the basement, so they turned the steam shovel into the boiler.
Yeah.
I'm familiar with the book. I must not have ever read the ending, though.
Actually, you just,
She put it back
you just
on the
never
shelf.
put it into context of engineering.
Yes, I thought this was Portland lore. Okay.
No, well, the whole point is I don't want it to become part of Portland lore.
No, we don't. With all contracts, we like to provide you an update of where we're at with our MWSB participation. And I just wanted to show you that originally AECOM committed to doing 28.4%. They have completed 19.4%, and the rest of their work falls into, the majority of their work now falls under West Yost, under the sole source. So for the next 4 years, West Yost is committing to doing the construction support services at 18.8% MWESB. I'm sorry, West Yost has a DMWESB requirement, and so going forward, we'll be seeing 18.8%. West Yost, or AECom and Cornforth have an MWESB requirement, minority women and emerging small business requirement, whereas West Yost has the disadvantaged requirement as well. To date, we've done the 19.4 and the 10.6% participation. As Gabe and the commissioner both mentioned, all three changes fall within the city council's approved, the current approved budget funding of $205 million. All we're doing is moving money around within that 205 by using up some of our contingency. And with that, I'm asking you to approve the two contract amendments for AECom and Cornforth and approve the new sole source contract. And we're here to answer questions.
Any further questions? Is there public testimony on any of these three items, Carla?
I believe they both left. Yep.
Commissioner Fritz?
I just want to make a final comment. First, thank you to both of you for all your diligence on this tremendously complicated project, long-term thing. You'll note that the reservoir comes online December 31st of 2020, which coincidentally is my last day. So I'm really hoping that we keep to the timeline. I need to mention, looking at all those trucks, and you can see what a massive project this is, the neighbors have been absolutely fantastic in working with us and our communications team in recognizing that this has got to be done, and we've worked very diligently to try to minimize the impacts, but obviously you can't do something of this size without the neighbors noticing. So thank you to them, and thank you to your team. Thank you.
And Commissioner Fritz, I want to acknowledge that as well. I remember when we approved the construction contracts back in 2016, we had quite a few neighbors in here who were very, very concerned about what the impact, particularly the trucks coming through the neighborhood, would be.
Yeah.
And I believe you have lived up to your commitment to make sure that the needs of the neighbors are addressed and that communication remains open. And I just want to acknowledge that and thank you for it.
And I also need to thank Commissioner Fish, who got all this project started and really set the bones of how this was going to move forward. So thank you, Commissioner.
One of the burdens of serving on this council for 10 years is Commissioner Fritz and I remember when the chambers would be full around a hearing like this. So times have changed. The Bureau enjoys a different level of public confidence. This project is going to be a home run for the neighborhood. And I just want to acknowledge that last Saturday, over 2,700 people came out to the Rose Garden to enjoy a free concert in the park. And when this project is complete, that'll be another amenity which will draw people to that area. So it's just fantastic.
Thank you.
It's going to be worth the wait, for sure. Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Item 771 is a non-emergency ordinance. It moves to second reading. Item 772 is a non-emergency ordinance. It moves to second reading. 773 is also a non-emergency ordinance. It moves to second reading. Carla, we completed everything, did we not?
I believe we did.
I believe we did. We are adjourned till 2 p.m.
Wow.